Is Pride Month important to you, Deanna? And did you celebrate this year?
I did. Pride Month. Um, it's important because it feels like a rebirth, and it's evolved over the years because of course it started as a riot, as a demand for rights. And it still is in a lot of corners, but it's also a celebration. So we do both, and we have to do both.
Is the show for me and you, the one you love to listen to, and ooh, you got your friends, see it through. See, 'cause laughter is medicine too.
Hey, this is 𝐤𝐤𝐤, producer of The Ed Show, an award-winning television show and podcast. I'm here in the Deep South in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and this is Wendy 𝐥𝐤𝐤, who sometimes claims me as her wife.
Hey, I have a license for that, which we obtained here in Massachusetts, where I am.
Well, who knows for how long?
Right.
Right.
Well, this is season 7, episode 2, our LGBTQ Pride wrap-up. The opinions expressed by our guest may not be the opinions of 𝐤𝐤𝐤 Productions. How are you doing, Angela?
It's been a intense week, right?
Yeah, it really has been for many, many people, for all of us. I was going to say, for LGBTQ people, for women, but really for a lot of people, men and women.
Yeah. It affects everyone, really.
Right, for sure. But, I think we plan to do this episode to talk about LGBTQ pride, which is a really fun topic. And for me, as someone who's sort of approaching 60 a little faster than I'd like to admit, I've seen a lot of positive changes over the years. Starting with in 1973, when they took homosexuality out of the DSM-2, made it not a mental illness. That was a big deal.
Right.
Back then.
Definitely.
And then, when same-sex marriage was passed in Massachusetts, that was in 2004, actually. And that was really exciting. That's my home state. That's where I am now.
And that's where we got married.
Right.
Because when we got married, it was still illegal in Arkansas. It
was. And in fact, I didn't realize that it was only in 2003, when the US Supreme Court decriminalized homosexual sex. Like, I didn't know I was doing something illegal before
that whole time.
Right.
Yeah. How long were you doing something illegal, by the way?
I'll never tell.
All right.
but we have seen forward movement, and President Obama signed an executive order in 2014 adding sexual orientation and gender identity protections for all federal employees. All of these steps really kind of gave us strength as individuals, that really we haven't been doing anything wrong, and now we have some protections and some rights. It's really weird, but I actually never really got involved with pride events. I came out when I was 30. It's a little bit later,
Yeah.
And I enjoyed sort of the privilege of a woman who didn't look the part, so to speak. Right.
Yeah.
So it didn't really occur to me to celebrate Pride. I didn't understand really what it was all about, and I was just sort of living my life. And then when you and I got together, and you suggested us going to Pride, or
I don't think you had ever been to a Pride.
I had never been to a Pride. You're absolutely right. I had been invited to different Pride events, but just never saw the need. I didn't understand what it was all about, or
You
how
thought it
it's,
was just like a big party or something?
yeah, I thought it was a big party, mostly young people, just,
Yeah.
drinking and, having fun, which is fine, but there's a lot of significance to it. What are your thoughts about it? Did you ever go and celebrate? I mean, you invited me to a Pride event, and then you actually performed at San Francisco Pride the year after we got married.
Yeah, correct. That was fun. Well, I just knew as soon as I came out, and uh even actually before I came out, oh, they're having a pride parade in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I mean, when it started, it was so tiny here, and now
Mhm.
it's become this huge event
Right.
that like a huge regional event here. So
Mhm.
I was all in. I was like, I want to go where my people are. So
Right. And I can understand that,
mhm,
growing up in the South as a lesbian is a lot different than growing up in the Northeast or in Massachusetts, where it is more accepted. There is still discrimination and there's still issues here of, unfortunately.
right.
But, I didn't really experience those problems that I have seen and heard about in the South, and even seen you experience.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in a very religious family,
Hmm.
I just needed to know where my people were. That's all I can say. Like, I needed
Right.
to know that I wasn't alone. And I think that these type of events can really give hope to our youth who feel like they are alone,
Hmm.
and or they are outcast in their families.
Right.
So
It's really important. And Dr. Nichol talks about later in the show how Pride events started with an uprising in Greenwich Village in New York of,
mhm,
LGBT people who had been harassed at a club and just decided no more. Right.
right.
And so it's really important. And I
Yeah,
really
it's not
thank
just a
you.
party, it's a protest also.
Right. I thank you for really introducing me to what pride really is.
Mhm.
And, as the years went on, I really started to embrace it. I so love
Yeah.
being in the Pride Parade in
Yeah, you
Fayetteville.
became part of it in
Yes.
here in Fayetteville. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so much fun, when the show, in the beginning of the show, when Topher was my co-host, we would take your Mustang and
Mhm.
ride in the parade, all, dressed up for Pride. And the crowd was enormous the 2 years that I did that, and
Yeah, it's really grown over the years. It's
it
amazing.
I was tearful, like, the whole way because it isn't only LGBTQ people that attend these events. These were families, people I knew from all different parts
Mhm.
of Fayetteville, from
Allies.
yes, from different communities, and to see everyone in the streets packed with people from
Mhm.
all walks of life, it's really touching and important.
We've really come so far, and I just hope that we didn't come this far just to have it taken away from us,
Right.
you know.
Well, I know you wanted to talk about some of the issues this year. It's been a tough year, the announcement of the overturning of Roe versus Wade
Mhm.
happened during Pride Month.
Well, I mean, it's Pride Month started with in Idaho, 31 people were arrested for intent to riot, like a white nationalist group called the Patriot Front, where they showed up to Pride in a U-Haul with a whole bunch of riot gear. And
Mhm.
so that was the first news we heard at the
It's
beginning of Pride
frightening.
Month. So that's kind of a scary thought, like how that might have escalated,
Mhm.
especially since the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting.
Mhm.
It's been harder for me to get out to some of these events and not be afraid. If you all don't know about the Florida Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting, there were, I believe, 49 people killed, 53 wounded. That's just amazing. It's like so scary that you think you could just be out celebrating, having fun with people and trying to feel like a sense of family that
Mhm.
maybe sometimes you never had. And
Right.
the whole club is shot up. It's scary.
Right.
So events like these, I think, could probably hinder people from going out and celebrating, especially people with high anxiety or
Mhm.
other trauma factors in their lives, you know?
Right. I agree with you. It breaks my heart because I know that, uh, how you experienced Pride and how it was important to you. And
Mhm.
now you feel, maybe partly because of other trauma, but,
Right.
and anxiety. And I don't think that you're alone. These events are exciting and fun and they can bring the community together, but we're seeing really the other side of it
Yeah,
as we
who
put
wants to go
ourselves
and be
out
scared the
there.
whole time? And
Mhm,
I don't want it to like keep me from going, showing who I am.
mhm,
At the same time, it's a scary time for a lot of people,
right,
especially where I am in the South. So,
right. I think here it feels a little more protected, but
mhm,
unfortunately, when things like this happen, so many people will say, well, I don't know why people are making a connection between the overturning of Roe versus Wade and perhaps LGBTQ people losing their right to same-sex marriage
right.
or other things, right? But it is kind of all connected because we're talking about our personal rights, our right.
Personal rights, personal
Mhm.
privacy,
Yes.
uh, right to healthcare,
Hmm.
just all of that is involved
Right.
in every single one of these issues. So,
Right. And so that's why the uprising, it's not simply I don't agree with this decision about a woman's right to choose and be in charge of her own body. that's
mhm,
that's one thing, but
mhm.
it's a slippery slope.
Yeah,
And it is unfortunate that it happened during Pride Month when we're all trying to celebrate. But as you pointed out, there are other things already that people are worried about.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah. So it's my hope that, we're the LGBTQ community is very good at stepping forward. They
Mhm.
did it with cannabis and the AIDS crisis.
Yeah, so it's already happening
Mhm,
because during New York City Pride, they had Planned Parenthood lead the parade this year,
mhm,
after the court decided to take away women's rights.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
the LGBTQ community has always stood up for human rights and will keep doing so.
I believe it. I believe it. It makes me truly proud, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, coming up next, my interview with Deanna Starshine. Joining me now is Deanna Starshine, host of Poetize with Deanna Starshine, which airs on kpsq.org 97.3 FM in Fayetteville, Arkansas, syndicated on Pacifica and on your podcast app. She also holds a Ph.D. in physics with research in the spiral arms of galaxies. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here.
I am so happy that you're here. I actually can't believe we haven't done this before.
I know, right?
Right?
Mhm.
But this is a perfect episode for us to chat, I think. We've just finished Pride Month, and
Is
Angela and I thought it was perfect time to talk about LGBTQ pride
yeah,
and issues. So, is Pride Month important to you, Deanna? And did you celebrate this year?
I did. I did. Pride Month. Um, it's important because it feels like a rebirth,
Mm,
and it's evolved over the years because of course it started as a riot, as a demand for rights,
mhm,
and it still is in a lot of corners, but it's also a celebration. So we do both, and we have to do both. But before, say, 2015, Pride was, us and us only, and maybe a few friends and allies would get together with sort of our backs to each other.
Mhm.
And then I guess the Supreme Court always drops the big ones in June. So in 2015, right before Pride weekend, they said, oh, by the way, you can get married. Oh my God. Well, the biggest party ever
Right.
at that point. And we're like, things just can't go backwards, can they? Things can never go backwards, can they? It's always a march forward. Oh, just kidding. All right. Well,
Goodness.
yeah,
Right.
big FU to you now, new Supreme Court. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Right. It was kind of like really sad and ironic that that happened in Pride Month,
Right.
because rolling back abortion rights, well, that's one thing, but Justice Clarence Thomas made it really clear that they're going to re-examine LGBTQ rights, same-sex
Yes.
marriage, and even sex itself. Right.
Yes. Democrats could pack the court right now. They could.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to. They bet that I want them to. I hope they do, but I have so little faith that they're actually going to take action. We'll go into quite a lot of detail about that on this week's Poetize.
Right. I will have to check that out, because it really boggles my mind that they're not willing to do that.
Yeah.
It seems like there's always this hold back, let's play nice kind of thing, when
we
clearly
don't want to make Republicans mad.
Lord,
they might not vote for me.
In contrast, I'm in Massachusetts right now, and I'm working as director of rehab in a healthcare facility. And to my delight and surprise, I learned that Massachusetts now requires LGBTQ training for all healthcare workers in long-term care. Nice. And they identified LGBTQ elders as at risk, because even if they were out when they were younger, as they age and become more fearful, maybe they have to go into a facility like the one I work at. It's pretty scary, wondering how they're going to be treated. Will they be accepted? So often they go back into the closet, or many of them are older and never came out, and now they've got a partner they've had for a long time, and it's frightening. What are your thoughts about this topic and aging? And do you think this could happen in other parts of the country? I'm just so excited to be here in Massachusetts and see this happening,
Yes. Well, Massachusetts led the way in terms of marriage.
Yes.
And maybe other states followed suit, and maybe that will be the case again. We have to fight for it. We can't roll over and let bigots control the law. As far as aging goes, I think there, in addition to the changes that happen to you when you get older, we're so influenced by our experiences as a child, and there are huge differences in the way LGBT children are treated now versus, say, in my mother's time,
right,
and even in my time. Now there is at once a very accepting group and people who will shame you, and you have to navigate both. When I was a kid, you really had to choose your friends carefully. And then, of course, when my elders were kids, you had to leave town, right? You had to go. You were totally in the closet in most places. If you had to go some other place, to some other big city where no one would see you, and you might get arrested. Right. And so elders today are dealing with a whole bunch of stuff that was piled onto them when they were younger, in addition to your body breaking down and going unnoticed because you're older. Right.
True. Very true. My final question has to do with your work, and I wondered, in academia, if you see, how are there experiences you can share? Are there challenges for you in the work that you do?
So I was very fortunate. Before I transitioned, when I was a grad student, there was another grad student who transitioned, and she kind of took the brunt of all the folks who were giving her dirty looks and didn't really know what to do with her. Like there weren't any protections yet. And I think when she was the shield for me, and I'm really grateful to her for taking all that,
Right.
because my experience has been much better. Like, in fact, a friend of mine accidentally outed me at work, and my boss comes over and says, "Deanna, is it?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yes, it is."
Nice.
And then the very next day, the sign was changed on my door.
Oh,
So they learned,
wonderful. Right.
and it was much easier. They did everything they could to help me. I know that's not representative. I mean, that most workplaces, it's not the case. I'm very, very fortunate to be where I am,
Mhm.
and to
Yeah.
have people who are caring.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story to hear. I hope we start to hear more of those. And
Yes.
I really wondered, if there were more challenges. I know that you're in a red state, but
Yes.
that's really great to hear. Wonderful. Well, this conversation has been wonderful. It's always delightful to see you and chat with you.
Too.
Where can people find Poetize with Deanna Starshine?
Yeah, we got it's poetry for weirdos is how we like to describe it. And you can go to our website, poetize.xyz. That's POETIZE.
Excellent.
XYZ, as in examine your zipper.
Ah, right. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
I'm Dr. Brian Nichol, your cannabis expert for CannabisExpertMD.com, with a cannabis pairing for the 𝐤𝐤𝐤 Show. As the month of June wraps up, the 𝐤𝐤𝐤 Show, they're going to be having a look back at LGBTQ Pride Month, which runs all of June. Now, if you're not familiar with it, it does honor the 1969 Stonewall Uprising that happened in Manhattan. On June 28th of that year, New York City police, they raided a gay club called the Stonewall Inn, located in Greenwich Village. The rough handling of those arrested, it really sparked 6 days of protests and clashes with the police in the neighborhood out in front of the bar and some of the parks. This is really considered the catalyst for the gay rights movement that started out in the United States at that time and expanded throughout the world. For this, I was looking for a strain to perhaps help you contemplate the progress that is made for the gay movement since the Stonewall riots in 1969, and maybe remember that no matter how different we all really are, or how society tries to divide us apart, or we divide ourselves apart, we're all part of the human race. I selected Natural State Medicinal's Critical Kush. Critical Kush is potent at 22% total THC. How much CBD, Mr. Producer?
Trace.
Yes, sir. Trace CBD is present. Looking at the terpenes as we always do, it is potent at 2.18% total terpenes. It's myrcene dominant at 0.89%. Pinine's up next at 0.5%. Terpinolene comes in right at about that at 0.42%. Limonene and beta-caryophyllene are tied at right about 0.14% each. And humulene and linalool make just a little bit of a showing at 0.05%. Now, Critical Kush, this should give a very quick cerebral high as the myrcene really speeds the THC's effects. The pinene, now that's going to give some energy and focus, just the thing you need if you're going to a high-energy gay pride parade. The limonene, now that's going to give you a little bit of a mood lift, take care of any anxiety you may be experiencing. The beta-caryophyllene, that sets up with the terpinolene and the myrcene to give a very nice kind of chill, but hopefully not overly sedating base. Critical Kush should be just the ticket to enjoy with LGBTQ Pride Month. And remember, we all have endocannabinoid systems. We're all part of the human race. For more information on all things medical cannabis, be sure to check us out at CannabisExpertMD.com. We're also available on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the Gab platform, and the relevant application under Cannabis Expert MD.
Well, what a great show it's been. Happy Pride, Angela.
Happy Pride, Wendy.
Trying to be happy.
Yeah, trying. We'll just keep working at it. I mean, that's what we've always done. It's either that or give up and maybe flee the country.
Right.
So
yeah, you sent me a text today, with a link to get our passports updated.
yeah, I think we should definitely do that. We should work
Goodness.
on that. I'm thinking like we should wait until at least until midterm elections, get our votes in and see how it
Mhm.
goes.
Right. See what happens from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to this, and you were talking to me earlier about how the mainstream media won't go so far. They keep talking about, well, if you start taking away rights, you're also taking away privacy rights, right? But they
Mhm.
don't actually talk about
They're
that
making it illegal for gay
they,
people to have sex.
they could, right?
Actually, even heterosexual people to have
Anal and oral
anal
sex.
or oral sex. I mean, I'm
Right.
just gonna say it. Like the news people don't want to say it.
I
But
don't know why they don't want to say it.
well,
I mean,
it's hard. I'm probably blushing right now, but it's the truth.
right.
And I don't think that people realize that that's what Justice Thomas is looking at in that case to overturn. So,
Right. Right. It was illegal until 2003,
mhm.
which
Yeah.
really just blows my mind. But yeah, so when they say privacy issue, that's what they're talking about. And it's a slippery slope. Like I said earlier, you'd start looking at people's rights to
Mhm.
do as they see fit in their own home.
Right. And how
And-
are they going to police this? So that's going to be privacy issues too. They're going to be looking at, your computer browser history. They're going to be wondering, well, why did you go and meet that person in the coffee shop? I mean,
Right.
why did you go to that pharmacy? What drug did you buy?
Right. And as Deanna said, the Democrats just need to step up. They have the capability to pack the court to make some changes right now. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure why they haven't.
I mean, they knew this was coming.
Right.
So
Right.
why was there not a plan in place by our elected officials? I think a lot of voters are really disheartened by this, and
Mhm.
who knows what's going to happen in the
Right.
next
Well,
election.
I think, as we said, the LGBTQ community has always stepped up in these times, and we need to continue to do that. And allies and others. It isn't just an LGBTQ issue. That maybe that's why the mainstream media keeps saying it's a privacy issue, because that affects all of us. And maybe the target is LGBTQ right now and women, but who knows what it'll be next.
Exactly.
So
Well, they're talking
so
about taking away a right to contraceptives that
Right.
affects any
Yep.
sexually active person
Mhm.
in the world.
Right. Yeah. So, I'm glad if you enjoyed Pride Month. This is our wrap up. And I think as a wrap up, what we're saying is, we have a lot of work to do.
Will it ever end?
I don't know.
Can we just sit back and enjoy our equal rights at some point?
Right. I mean, I thought that was going to happen when we were able to marry in 2010 in Massachusetts. It was really beautiful and exciting, and to be
Yeah.
able to exercise those rights, and but things have a way of coming around, unfortunately.
Yeah,
And so we still have lots of work to do.
definitely.
Well, have a great week, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.
The Ed Show is sponsored in part by the Relevant app, 131 Inclusion Gallery, 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐿 Wellness, Lindsay Camp with Synergy One Lending, and Green Harvest Health, inviting you to reclaim your wellness.